What's poppin', people? It's Dante, just going for my morning walk here in Philadelphia. And I just wanted to share some advice for street photographers out there. Yeah, just some random tips for street photography. So I've been practicing street photography for a decade now, and I just want to share the love and just some random things that I've learned along my journey. So first and foremost, photography, it's a physical pleasure, right? It's a physical pleasure. And you know what this means is the motivation, it derives from your legs, right? From the movement of your body, right? Human beings are bipedal for a reason. We have two legs, we stand upright, right? And so what this means in the context of street photography is the more that you walk, the more that you see. The more that you see, the more that you photograph, right? And the more that you photograph, the more success you will have, right? Where the street is an arena. The street is a playground for adults to play upon, to dance upon, to have fun upon, right? Where the world is our canvas. And to me, this world is endless and open to explore, and we can move our physical bodies endlessly throughout this world and always find something to photograph, no matter how mundane the place may seem. And so it's a very motivating thought that at the end of the day, the more that you move, yeah, the more that you will shoot. And so yeah, just consider movement, consider the physicality of the medium, I believe, first and foremost, right? So consider basketball, right? Where the arena is the basketball court. And the more that you go out there to the basketball court and practice your shot, the more that you're going to make your shots. And so with photography, and specifically street photography, where a lot of spontaneity and entropy and randomness takes over, it requires repetition and practice, right? It requires you to go out there and to make the effort to photograph each and every day, despite the circumstances, right? So even if you only have 30 minutes, 1 hour, a couple hours, or you shoot all day, you know, I think that photographing daily is the most important aspect of practicing street photography. It's remaining in this flow state, this state of production. And so the simplest solution to photograph on the streets every single day is perhaps using a compact digital camera like the Ricoh GR3. And so I believe that this camera is the best for street photography because of its compact size and because it forces you to stick to one camera and one lens. And I think what happens is a lot of photographers get caught up with experimenting a little bit too much, you know, using too many lenses and cameras and things. And I think that these things actually bog us down from progress. And so as much as we should repeat our process each day and practice with repetition, we should also consider the way in which we approach the gear that we use and how we can also stay in tune with our gear and use the same tool each and every day. And so the Ricoh makes it so that there's no excuse, as it is very small and compact and can fit in your front right pocket, and it can just simply always be there with you, right? That's the most important part of practicing street photography, is just having the camera with you. And so practical suggestion is the Lululemon License to Train 5-inch shorts. I think these are the best for street photography. I don't like the liner. I have the linerless version, but the point is they have zipper pockets, and these zipper pockets allow you to store your camera and your batteries and whatever else you need. And for shoes, the Vibram 5-finger ELX barefoot shoes, I believe, are the best in the game. Think of basketball, think of like Mike, the orphan boy in the movie. He finds Michael Jordan's shoes and he starts to hit all of his shots and he starts to play in the professional NBA. Yeah, I think maybe we should be like Mike and just pick up the Vibrams. I think there's something in the shoes and the way that they help you stay in tune with movement, and I feel the sensations of the ground around me, and this allows me to move. And when you consider physicality, it helps me move with intentionality, and I slow my pace down when I'm on the streets. And perhaps movement and walking, it's like this meditative practice. And so by wearing proper footwear and slowing your body down, yeah, you'll start to recognize more things to photograph, I believe. So maybe as much as we should be walking, we should also be considering the way in which we're walking and how we are walking. And so by walking at a slow pace you will allow life to flow towards you, where, you know, we're on the hunt, we're looking for those fleeting moments, but we should just let them come to us and just go slow and just enter the Zen zone, baby. So yeah, that's my practical suggestion in terms of gear, equipment, and things. Yeah, I think that these things are important to consider. And so as much as street photography is this physical game, it's also a physical pleasure. It's also a visual game, right? It's visual problem solving. It's you know, putting a puzzle together, right? From the foreground, the middle ground, the background, right? What you include from the frame and exclude from the frame are important to consider, right? So what you exclude may be more critical, where you don't want clutter in your background, you don't want noise in your background. So you want to position yourself and your camera in a way that will simplify the frame. I think that simplicity is king. It's more beautiful. And so some practical suggestions to achieving simplicity in your street photography, where spontaneity and randomness are out of our control and people are walking and moving in the crowd in cluttered conditions and chaotic conditions. If you position yourselves on the curb of the street and you walk on the outskirts and you look at the subjects as they dance upon the street on the corners or against the wall of a building, you can then photograph to the left of you or to the right of you and place your subjects upon the stage, upon this backdrop that will separate them from the clutter and the chaos. You don't always have to shoot head on. You don't always have to photograph somebody in the same eye level, right? To experiment with the way in which you position your body is critical. So when you approach something that's going on, think in your head how you can position your camera to achieve a composition that becomes readable. For instance, this past weekend I was in Coney Island for the 4th of July celebration, and I found it very difficult to photograph along the boardwalk, right? There was just so much chaos. You couldn't really separate subjects from the background, and because of this, when I would see something occurring, whether it was people dancing, playing music, or just, you know, displaying their snakes, I would drop to a low angle and use the beautiful blue sky as my background as a way for me to separate the subjects from the chaos of the crowd. And while sometimes the chaos of the crowd can add interest to the photograph, I actually believe that by eliminating that and focusing on what matters, the moment itself, yeah, perhaps this is where more beautiful photographs are made. And so by simplifying your frame and positioning your body in different ways, you can achieve a more successful composition. And so another practical suggestion when walking through a city is to observe the bus stops. And so when you're at a bus stop, people are always coming and going. There's always people waiting at bus stops, and the people at the bus stop are typically stationary. And so if you're looking to make a photograph with layers, and I don't mean complexity for complexity's sake, but you want to practice your composition, there's going to be people positioned at different elevations throughout a bus stop, where people are standing, people are sitting, some people are behind the glass waiting by the pole. There's going to be opportunities for you to practice layering with street photography at bus stops. And because of the stationary nature of the subjects and the people at a bus stop, it'll increase your chances of you making a successful photograph. So observe the bus stops and those fleeting moments of people moving into the bus and coming and going, right? Where you can shoot into the reflection of the window. You can shoot people as they're sitting and waiting. There's a lot that you can do at a bus stop, and I found myself photographing throughout bus stops all in Philadelphia and throughout the world as a way for me to achieve these layered compositions. And so when it comes to the gear you use and it comes to, like, you know, the technical settings and things, I don't really think it's important for you to shoot manual. I think if you can use your camera in P mode like I have set up here and just point and shoot, or use AV mode with a minimum shutter speed of 1/500th of a second with your aperture just set to f8, snap focus 2 meters, blah blah blah, everything will be so much more simple, right? So you don't even have to think, but you just shoot, right? That's the goal. Think less, shoot more. You know, the more that you're fumbling and bumbling with your camera, yeah, the less opportunities you're gonna have to make photographs. So just set it and forget it, put it to P mode, put it to f8, you know, automatic ISO, and just move onward. Stop thinking and just shoot more. And you know, one of the things that I recognized over the years is when I'm approaching a scene and I find it to be really fruitful and there's something interesting going on, you know, I let the scene unfold before me and I photograph through the scene, right? You know, I leave the scene when the scene leaves me, right? I'll photograph with repetition over and over again until the decisive moment reveals itself to me. And so what that means is, don't just press the shutter one time. You know, sometimes you can have a moment that's just a one and done when you're running and gunning and you're walking on the sidewalk. But I'd say that actually oftentimes you want to shoot through the scene. You don't want to make just one picture and move on. But sometimes a scene requires you to be there and to be present and to watch as it unfolds. And I think that this is critical, right? Where you work the scene, you move around, you position yourself in your camera in a way that will elevate this mundane moment to something new, to something different that hasn't been seen before. And so the ultimate question that I ask myself before I head out with my camera is, what will reality manifest to be in a photograph, right? This is what keeps me going. You know, this is what keeps me motivated or inspired. It's the question mark. It's that unknown that's beyond the horizon, you know. And oh wow, listen to the birds. So when you're photographing, you know, you're just asking questions. You're curious about the way that photography transcends reality. And to me, this is the beauty and superpower of photography. It's the ability for you to embrace the moments that are fleeting and to enjoy this moment right here, right now. And by photographing things, you know, you can create anew, right? Where the things in front of you that are seemingly nothing and seemingly banal or boring can become interesting and novel. And through the experiences you have with a camera, yeah, you can find yourself giving life more meaning, right? This is the goal as a street photographer, I believe, is to increase your curiosity, and through that pursuit of curiosity and exploration, your life will become more meaningful. And you'll find yourself on this endless journey where the stream of becoming is the joy. It's the process. It's the evolution of you as a photographer. It's not something that you are doing for some external goal or striving to make a print or a book or something else. It's the joy of photographing. You know, the click of the shutter is me asking questions and having a dialogue with the world and evolving with each step, and to move my body through the world and to use a camera as a way for me to just go out there and see what's going on. I mean, to me, that's critical to remind myself each day. And so every morning when I wake up early, I'm just eager to go out there and to see the world, right? And the camera is the excuse for me to get there. It's really simple. The photograph is a reflection of my lust for life. You know, the photography practice has nothing to do with these compositions that you're making and, you know, the way in which you can operate a camera and all this technical nonsense and blah, blah, blah. Are you lusting for life? Are you curious about life itself? Then your photographs will display this. Then you will be revealed, you know, these beautiful moments and things will be revealed to you. You know, but it's up to you. And where you position yourselves on the front lines of life, you know, close to life itself, both physically and emotionally, right? Then you will, you know, find yourselves making these more successful pictures, these strong pictures, etc. But I think that we should remove this notion of good or bad within the realm of a photograph, right? For the next picture that you make is your next best picture. And so with that mindset, you enter this state of production, right? This flow state. And it's a very abundant feeling that you get when you sit out there with this mindset. And, you know, I'm just curious about life itself. You know, what will reality manifest to be in a photograph? You know, that's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me up at night. That's what keeps me going to bed early, actually. It's the opposite. Practical suggestion for street photographers: get your ass in bed. SEAP, SEEP, sleep early as possible. It's my new motto. See, it's over there, 5:33 a.m. Yeah, I get up early, 4 a.m. I slam 4 espressos, and I hit the streets, baby. I just like to get out here. Like, I don't know, for me as a street photographer, to be inside is where my soul slowly dies. But when I'm outside, I thrive, and I exist outside the passage of time through moving my body and recognizing the patterns in nature and human behavior, you know, and cutting through the chaos and putting order to it. While I'm looking at the world this way, it reminds me of how open it is. There's just so much to see and do, and there's so many new ways to create. You know, like we're born creators, you know, but a lot of times we wake up in the morning and we check our phones. You know, we wake up in the morning, we start listening to music in the shower or some bullshit. But to just wake up in the morning with your eyes wide open and to hit the streets and to be outside in the real world, moving your body, to me, this is the ultimate privilege in the modern world, in modern society, you know, where we mostly live, you know, a sedentary, stationary lifestyle indoors, you know, in cars, going to the office, etc. But to me, street photography becomes the antidote to this modern way of life where, you know, a lot of people are very to themselves these days and don't really have time to chat when you're on the streets. But as a street photographer, you give yourself this excuse to interact with the world, right? Where you not only become this bystander, but you're an active participant in the drama that unfolds in everyday life, right? Where I found myself throughout the world exploring and integrating myself in new communities and speaking with new people and meeting new faces and having these experiences that stand the test of time. I mean, that these memories will live on within me and within the photographs that I make. And I think that there's something about engaging with the world in this very playful way that street photography allows you to embark on, right? Where you're not only just photographing as a bystander, but you can participate with life on the front lines and actually engage all of your senses, both the visual, the sensual, you know, the auditory, the sounds, the smells of the streets, you know, and interacting with people. It becomes this very multifaceted experience. So I think it's important to remind ourselves that, you know, when we're photographing, you know, if someone acknowledges that you made their photograph, you know, just say thank you. Be like, oh, thank you, and, you know, compliment people and, you know, spread kindness and joy through the medium of photography. I think that we can become closer to life itself. And yeah, to me, this is one of the most fulfilling aspects of photography. It's really about the process of being out there and engaged with society as much as we are bystanders of it. And so, yeah, just recognize that the camera becomes this key that unlocks the multifaceted doors and experiences in the world, where I've personally unlocked physical doors with my camera, if you will, where each and every morning when I visited my friend Mohammed's house in Jericho, you know, I would knock on his door and, you know, we would go out there into the streets of Jericho and he would show me around his town, and we would go and pray in the mosque and water Hassan's garden. And you know, throughout my journey of traveling, I've had these different experiences that have transcended the mere experience of photographing, but you go on this adventure. And for me, when I'm out there with my camera, I sort of think of the world this way, where, you know, it's open like a video game and there's just so much to experience. And so by being open to engaging with other people, you never know what you will find, right? There's just so much to do, and I think photography reminds me of that. And so yeah, with that, another practical suggestion in terms of tips and tricks and things, you know, I think that this is kind of a funny one, right? It's like when you're photographing on the streets, I believe that we shouldn't photograph with intention, right? What that means is, like, when we're photographing, we shouldn't be thinking about pictures. You know, when you're snapshotting and you're making these photographs, you know, don't look at the world as a picture, but look at life in front of you and photograph life. You know, photograph your curiosity, photograph the things that you deem to be interesting. You know, where I think that we get caught up with the photograph. You know, this isn't something that we should think about too much, you know, but you should follow that childlike curiosity. And so by going out there into the world and just sort of following your pure curiosity, yeah, this is where your most interesting photographs may be. You know, what that means is you should learn the rules, maybe study the masters, but then at some point you're going to have to break them, and you're going to have to create your own game to play, you know, where there are no rules, there are no guidelines in street photography. You know, there's no specific way in which you should be approaching this thing, but you should approach it in your own way, you know, find your own game to play and what you deem to be interesting in a photograph. And yeah, by remaining open and not pigeonholing yourself into one way of photographing, I think that we can thrive. And this is something I actually wish I learned earlier on, because I photographed in a very traditional documentary way for a long period of time. And while this had me, you know, learning and growing and experiencing life and photographing and making these pictures, I think I limited myself. And I think going forward we should unshackle ourselves and go limitless, and, you know, find ourselves exploring more and photographing more in nuanced ways. And so yeah, what this means is being more playful with the photographs that you create, and yeah, not taking it so seriously, right? Don't take yourself so seriously. You know, when I've traveled to new places, I wouldn't take myself as this serious photographer, but I would walk around beatboxing and dancing and exploring. And I think that's where we can have the most joy in our lives, is through the spirit of play. And so when I'm photographing, practically, I'm photographing with the high contrast settings cranked to the max on my Ricoh. All the grain, all the contrast, everything's cranked to the maximum. And I use a small JPEG file. When I go home, I import my photos onto my iPad Pro with the small SD reader, plug it straight into the Photos app, label my albums based on the date, favorite them, import them to a keepers folder, back them up to the cloud, and I move on, right? So what this allows me to do is stay in the state of production. It allows me to stay in the spirit of play without getting caught up with the photographs that I make. I don't have to worry about processing or cropping and making things and adjustments. I can simply photograph and move on with speed, you know, where longevity, I believe, is the ultimate goal, right? And so by photographing in this new way, this new process, I've unlocked this appreciation for life itself on a deeper level. You know, I really do think that there's something about the process that I'm practicing currently that's allowing me to remain in this very playful and joyful state through the practice of photography, where I don't have to, you know, wait for my photos to import at the end of the day and give myself a headache at the end of the month when I'm culling, but I can simply photograph and move on with speed. And yeah, I'm really grateful that I've made a change, you know, where I'm in this point of evolution with my journey. And, you know, maybe this is the goal, right? Is to just keep evolving. And yeah, I can't help but to express how grateful I am for photography and this new process for I can now photograph in a way that brings me joy and fulfillment. And what I photograph is ultimately, you know, a reflection of that feeling. And yeah, I can't help but recommend it enough. You know, if you're shooting with the Ricoh, just try it out. You can check out on my blog, I have a workflow post or my Ricoh settings somewhere. Yeah, check it out, and maybe try it out yourself and see what you think. Everything becomes really simplified and streamlined, and I actually think that if I were to go back in time, I'd probably have started off shooting this way. You know, I think there's something about this process that really just, it simplifies things. And I think that simplicity really is king. And so, yeah, with that, I think I'll just end the video off, because I think with street photography tips, they become a little bit, almost like obvious sometimes. There's not really much to say. I'm mostly interested in the philosophy of photography these days and thinking more about the process. And I don't know, I think at the end of the day, just remind yourself that photography really is a physical pleasure, you know, moving your body through the world, exploring, you know, having that call to adventure each day. You know, this is the joy. It's the process of going out there, and through repetition and daily practice, you will inevitably find yourself making stronger work. So just keep going out there and photographing, and yeah, just don't stop moving. Ooh, look at the flowers. I like this. It's beautiful.